Hello, this is the podcast from the international research platform SIMM, with reports and interviews from across the world on the role music can play in social and community programs. I am Lucas Perron. During this 9th episode of the SIMM-podcast, you will hear me interview musicians Dirk Proost, Philippe Verneert, Ines Lamella and Sarah Terry about what motivates them to want to engage themselves in social and community music projects, but also about how they can prepare themselves for this type of work. They are 4 very different personalities from 3 different musical worlds, but listening to them during this somewhat longer episode of the podcast, you will find that they are not that different in terms of what concerns them most. Ines Lamella is a pianist from Portugal who worked as a musician in prisons. Ines is a practitioner researcher who also did research on the projects she was herself involved in Portuguese detention contexts. You will be able to read an article she wrote on this research in the special SIMM issue of Musicae Scientiae, which we expect will be released in September this year. Hello, Ines. My first question is, why did you want to do this work? And, you can maybe tell in a few words what exactly you have been doing in prison contexts, in detention contexts in Portugal.
Why do I engage with social music projects? Well, I think to understand that I have to tell a bit of my story. I am a classical pianist, and I was trained as a classical pianist since I was 6 years old. And the normal path for someone like me is to become a pianist, a performer, or a teacher, or both. And that should be the normal life that I should have right now. But in the meanwhile, when I was at university, I was challenged to participate in some artistic projects that involved much more than me playing piano or classic piano. And that opened the doors of my life to become a musician in different ways.
What kind of projects were there?
I was part of a project which was called Bach to Cage, and it began with music of Bach.
Sounds good.
Yes, and it involved some drama. I discovered that I could sing also besides play. It involved new technologies. It was something that at the time was pretty new here in Portugal.
Which university was it?
Universidade de Aveiro, which is south from Porto, maybe best known city around Aveiro. And after I graduate, I was still part of this kind of projects. And at some point, I realized that being a piano teacher, I became a full-time piano teacher, which I continue to be today. Mm-hmm. And I realized that I needed more. I was trying to find more, a different sense in my life as a musician. And I decided to go to Casa da Música in Porto to attend the Curso de Formação de Animadores Musicais, which is a training course for someone who likes to develop skills as a community music leader.
Okay, interesting. Is that existing already since a long time, or?
Each year they have the training is from October until July. It's a school year of length.
And it's the concert hall, the Casa da Música, organizing it.
Yes, the educational service.
So it's not a school, it's not a university or a conservatory.
No, it's Casa da Música. It's a cultural institution, yes. And the education service organizes this every year. And during this course, we have different projects. The leaders that guide the group of musicians that are in that course are from the UK. They are pretty skilled and experienced musicians. And we have different projects with different communities during 10 months. So and so. And I discover that working and engaging with people, in my year, we worked with a group of children from a school in Porto or near Porto. We worked with a blind people group of people. We went to a prison. That was the first time that I went to a prison, and we worked with different vocal ensembles from Porto. And this experience, I usually say that it was kind of an epiphany for me. I discovered that all that I knew as a musician, as a very skilled musician, made true sense when working in this kind of settings, especially in prison.
And in which way?
In the way that, as a piano teacher, I give myself as a musician in a way that is a conventional way. I teach my students most of the time how to play music by others, and sometimes students, unfortunately, don't want to be there. They are at the school, at music schools because the father or mother wants them to learn music. And it can be quite frustrating sometimes to work with them. I'm lucky enough to have most of my students engaged with my teaching, but that is not the case every day. And I realized that the impact that my work with people inside prisons, for instance, was much more than the impact that I have with my students at a music school. And most important, I think I realized that not only I had something to give them, but I had lots of new things to learn and to challenge me to become a different musician, a different person.
Like what?
And for instance, I learned that I had to use my knowledge and my technical skills to play different kinds of music that I would never play at university or at an academic setting, for instance.
Because not classical?
Non-classical, and not from reading from a music score, which is my life most of the time. And especially, I think music is not the goal. Music is the way you can connect with people. And that in a prison setting or working with a community of blind people that never worked, that never played anything before, is a very strong, it was a very strong experience for me. I realized that not everybody has this kind of sensibility or is not sensitive to this kind of experiences as the way I was at that time, but that really changed me.
Does it also have an impact on your regular teaching?
Of course, yes. I'm pretty sure that I'm a very different teacher because I have this kind of experience outside my school. And the good thing is that I can change or transform my school with this kind of ideas, and I'm lucky enough to work in a school
open to this. Yes,
is open to new things when working with our students.
And so what is changing apart from maybe you being differently empathical towards those you have in front of you in such sessions? Is it also some like pedagogical methodology, or what changes in your teaching? And
I think the pedagogic tools, I don't know if this is the right word to name it. I developed new things with the people that I worked in prison that I brought to my school. For instance, playing by ear, which is something that amazingly you don't do in a music school most of the time, or to write scores in a different way that is not with clef signs and traditional music, conventional musical writing, to facilitate, to make the process of reading something from a piece of paper easier and faster. Or just remember, just an idea of something that is written, that is not written with all the details, but helps the students to remember what they have to play. Or
do you still sing?
Yes, I do.
Also during your teaching?
Yes, a lot. Yes, and I make my students sing a lot because I think it's part of develop important things in what concerns being a musician and being trained as a musician. Yes. And I also sing we have several performances at my school where teachers play, and I play, of course, but I also sing. And sometimes my students are quite surprised to hear me singing and not playing all the time.
I would like you to tell us a little bit more about what kind of music you then play or introduce in, let's say, the social or community music projects. You already said something that it's different from the classical repertoire that you've been trained in, but can you explain a little bit more?
Yes, I think there are many different styles that can be brought to this kind of settings, and it depends, of course, on the people that are with whom I'm working with. If someone likes classical music, I can teach how to play some classical repertoire from my instruments. But I think what I like to do is to give some classical heritage repertoire to them, but also to compose a lot, to improvise or to create, to explore creativity as one important part of their musical experience. And also,
I'm interested in that. How do you invite people to create during such sessions?
My projects had, at least until now, the piano as the focus, as the main tool to make music. And piano is, I think it's a privileged instrument to work with in this kind of settings, because even with people that never played before, it's easy to stroke a key and to have some sound. So from the first day, they can, together with me, I play a lot in four hands piano. I can give them some musical ground for them to just find what sounds good for them. And it's quite surprising to know that even with people that never played before, and sometimes that have never had contact with music as in an active way, improvise amazingly and with a sense of music structure that I was amazed from the first one with some of the people with whom I worked. And this is the first step to challenge them to compose. For me, composition in this kind of settings is the result of an improvisation experience. From improvisation, you can choose bits of music that together became a composition with a structure, with several parts, with contrasts, with imitations, everything that we know from classical music scores, for instance. So this was when I went to the prison for the first time to develop my own project. I never thought I worked with 4 women for 8-9 months, and I would never thought they would ask me to play Beethoven or Bach, and they did ask me to play, but I was surprised with that will from the women that I worked with. But our first steps were to improvise, just to create with total freedom to do wherever they feel like made sense to them, that sounded good. And they told me several times that it was they felt free during those moments, and it was an open door to, after that, to teach them how to play, how to stroke a key, how to have a piano, a forte, a staccato, legato. I told them how to make all kinds of things after they discovered the instrument by themselves.
So Ines, and what is the place of performing? Is it important at a certain point to be able to perform what you worked on together with the participants in these projects in front of an audience and different people?
Yes, I think is something that is crucial in this kind of work.
Why is it crucial?
I always tell to my students that I don't teach them to become students, but I teach them to become artists. So, and the place for an artist is in a stage, performing to other people. And the sense of fulfillment when you get the applauses after a performance is something that I don't imagine not being present when I work in this kind of settings, especially with people that I worked from a few months or a weekend, or people that I know for a few times in my life. They cross with me for a few days and then I go away. And I think that what they keep for themselves for the future is this final performance, more than the process of getting there. The feeling of applause.
Just audio recording or filming is not fulfilling enough.
I think it's not. I think you have to feel that someone is listening to you, is looking at you, and applaud you at the end. You feel that you had value. What you did means something to the people that are applauding. Yes,
it's appreciated.
And for instance, in prisons, it's maybe, I don't know if I can say that, but maybe it's even important because in prison people feel sometimes there's a stigma of being imprisoned and low self-esteem levels and low self-efficacy. And when you have the director, the people who run the prison applauding you, it's the inversion of the roles, and it is a quite important experience to the people that...
Satisfying.
Yes.
I'd like to come back to what we discussed in the beginning of our talk concerning the training or the preparation that you may need as a musician to be able to function well, to do a good job in social music projects. And you gave the example of the training program that the Casa da Musica is has proposed to you. What are the things that you think are the talents, the skills and the knowledge that you need as a musician to do a good job, at least in the context that you've been working with, that you know, for example, the context of detention of prisons? And so that's one question. What do you need? And then the second part is, how can you get there? Is it only through doing the work, or do you really believe that training program is capable of preparing you as a musician for this work?
Well, I think, first of all, being a good musician doesn't mean you're going to be a good teacher or that you're going to be successful leadership in social music projects. This is I think the starting point of everything, and what I think you have to have to become a successful music leader is the will to connect with people, and to connect in a way that you feel that you are open to them, to give all that you can give to them, but you are also open to receive what they have to give you, which is something that is almost absent of piano teaching in the conservative way.
Which is often too much a one direction process.
Yes, one direction process most of the time. And there are many people who don't feel this need to connect with people. They feel quite fulfilled working, practicing 8 hours a day alone in their practice room. I was the one who found that wasn't enough for me. I had to have something else. I like very much to have some time in my life to practice and to play alone, but that wasn't enough. And that's when I discovered that I could be a musician in this kind of settings, and that gave me what I didn't know, but it was missing in my life at the time. To be trained to do that, I think it's, at least my experience, I think it was quite a positive one, because I had the training together with the learning by doing.
Yes.
We had, when I was at Casa de Música program, we did work with those people, but everyone was being guided for someone who had lots of experience and that knew how to guide us to work with people, the kind of even the kind of words that you use to talk with people that don't have any experience of music.
And so session after session you could discuss what the experiences that you had, the difficulties that you encountered, also
ideas.
the positive, the experience that you had, and
Yes, and that was very, very positive. Of course, you can't learn how to be a music leader and expect to, after a master in leadership or a music program like the one in Casa de Música, being able to do projects everywhere with the same tools. Each project is unique. Each person is unique. So I think what we have to learn, and that I think it was the most important thing that I learned, is to be opened and to be prepared to be challenged. And they always told us that we were 15, I think, when I was at the program. Everyone was a classical trained musician, and they always told us, music in a very deeply and profound way. So don't be afraid to try other things, because you have the skills to manage to try other things. Don't be afraid. But I still have some insecurity when I do this kind of things, because I don't know if it will go the way I imagined. Mm.
And so it was very good to be accompanied by,
of
and
course,
so you could share your experiences and your thoughts and your,
Yes.
Another question is, you continued your career as a musician. Is there in some way that this social, call it social community work, has also influenced you as a musician? And is it possible to talk about this? And I mean, in which sense does it influence you playing Bach or Beethoven or anything else?
I think maybe I play Bach in Bach is my favorite one, so I will always play Bach. And I don't think that experience changed me in the way I play Bach, but it changed me in the way I live the process of playing it. And most of all, I think I can give a quite a specific example of how I was changed by this kind of experience. I was invited to compose 4 different music moments for a performance that was celebrating a famous Portuguese poet. And the idea, they gave me 4 poems of Eugênio de Andrade, the Portuguese poet, and I had to compose music inspired by the poems. I think I would never accept the challenge if I didn't work before in this kind of projects where I was challenged to compose and to improvise and to create. I guess the compositions, they were okay, people liked it. I think I have to develop more, of course, but not being afraid of saying, okay, I will play 4 compositions, original compositions that I will create, was something that would never happen if I didn't have this kind of experience before.
Ines, I also would like to ask you whether you can give me some examples of interesting mistakes that you made and that you learned from.
I think the biggest mistake that I did when I went to prison to develop my first project is to think that people wouldn't like to know more about classical music. And I was prepared to work everything in every way, but none of them implying the traditional work that I do with music scores and classical composers. And I found that not only they were interested, but this new knowledge that they acquired was something that was really powerful, and they felt that music was something that was not accessible to them, classical music, and somehow they felt they were part of it when they were introduced to the classical knowledge.
But I know, but you should tell something about it, that of course it takes time.
Yes.
So and you were able to really work with them for a certain amount of time. Can you say something more about this?
Of course, for me to being able to teach or to make them play, and I always looked for the best performance, technically and musically speaking that I could. It took time, and I started my project in November, and we first performed for a public in March. And I was quite nervous, of course, because not only the experience of being there was important for me and for them, but also the music outcomes of my work. So in this specific project, yes, it took me a while to teach them how to play and how to have skills that made them feel comfortable with the instrument. But in other projects, for instance, I was in a prison working with a group of 6 men for 1 day. We had 1 day, and we had to perform a small performance at the end of the day. And of course, I couldn't teach them. Yes, it was mostly improvising, and I taught them a very small bit of music. But I played a lot for them, and sometimes I improvise over Bach or over Beethoven. And
did you think it was meaningful anyway?
Yes.
Even though it was short?
Yes. They were men, which is very different for me, working with women or with men. And 4 of them were pretty. I think they could be my fathers, maybe, and they were kind of suspicious at the beginning when they look at me, girl who played piano, and at the end of the day, one of them told me, when I played with you, when I was improvising, I felt I wasn't here. My head, my life, my soul fly to another place. So yes, I think it is meaningful.
Yeah. But then you would want to go back and
yes,
work
of course.
more with them.
Yes, yes, okay. Of course.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ines, really. Dirk Proost is hobo player and teacher at different music schools, but also very actively engaged as an initiator and practitioner in different social and community music programs. He created the program In, Out, Escape Through Art, which is a multidisciplinary art project welcoming a mixture of participants, professional artists, artists in training, as well as amateurs, going into detention centers to make music with inmates.
Yeah, from the beginning on, I started with ethnical instruments and a lot of non-instruments. This was an experience I've had by working with all youngsters I had in the Music Academy of Leer near Antwerp. So I had a kind of instrumentation, wonderful ethnical instruments, easy to play, but with a wonderful sound. So it was about magic of sound.
What kind of instruments? Percussion instruments or wind instruments?
Percussion instruments, percussion instruments, temple bowls, all instruments you can handle very easy, but have a wonderful sound. Rain sticks, kutawapas, all these kind of wonderful and easy instruments intrigues me already for a long time, and it's very interesting to offer them to all people you meet in these areas, because a lot of people didn't have any experience with music, so you can let them participate in no time in a musical discourse.
I understand you don't want to disturb them with playing hobo.
No, it would be too difficult. But anyway, if you talk about other instruments, always you meet in prison musicians who have had an education. And so I met a person, and that's for me very memorable. The first session I was talking about, there was a guy who didn't want to participate, and I wanted to let him participate, but he always said, no, I'm just watching. It's very interesting what you are doing, but I want to watch. And the week after that first session, I started preparing the session, and he came to me before the session and he said, "Hi guy, what you've been doing last week I've never seen. I'm here already for 40 years in prison, same prison." And he started talking about his story, about his life. And he said, "But what you have been doing, this is wonderful. I'm at your service, what can I do?" And he started talking about his life, and he asked me how he could help me, and he was at my service, he said, for the rest of the sessions. And we had a lot of contact during the years, and it was very interesting for me how people can change in prison and how difficult it is for them. But I've learned also how people can change in that kind of incarceration and make good time for themselves. He had to find a way of surviving, because he was already at the age of 24. He went into prison and he was already at the age of 65, so he had to find some things to survive. But which was very interesting for me, he said, in fact, I was a musician before I entered prison. And he started talking about his education, and he was a student of the Conservatoire of Liège, and he had played the guitar with the epigons of one of the most famous guitar players, Django Reinhardt. And I said, "But you have to try to take the guitar again, to play, and try to practice this week, and we see what we can do." And the third session, he came with his guitar and he said, "Yeah, I've been playing for decades only in a church as accompaniment, but I've been practicing now and I can let you hear something." And I made a recording of that play, and it was amazing. It was wonderful what he did after 1 week. He was a giant on the guitar. And I said, "If you go on practicing, I can bring a guitar player for you, and you can make music together on the concert," because we were preparing a concert at the end of all sessions. So this was for me a very memorable experience, in fact. Another experience for me was after a session when a guy from Somalia came to me and he said, "Dirk, what's going on here? My whole life, my entire life, I've got humiliation everywhere, every time. And you come here and you say, it's good, it's wonderful what you are doing. What's going on? Can I come back next week?"
Dirk, one more question. This social work that you're doing a lot of, does it have an impact on your work as a musician? Do you somehow experience that you play differently as a musician, or that you experience your being a musician on stage differently? Can you explain that?
Yeah, as I said, in the conservatory you are educated as an outstanding performer, and you perform to an audience. And the way I grew through the sessions I made and through all the participants I've met makes that I bring another language now with my music. I communicate more than I did before. I was, before all this social work, I was performing, and now I'm communicating with music. And it's, for me, I don't make a production anymore, or the audience has to participate, or there are a lot of people from outside who has to participate with me. It's really necessary for me. It's an artistic need I have now already. So it's changed a lot for me, my whole way of performing.
Is that then excluding a certain part of the repertoire?
Yeah, this was really very strange that I became aware that all the classical music that I studied the decades before, that it became more and more strange. And it was a really strange confrontation for myself when I was teaching the classical music, that I also started teaching that kind of classical music, the music of the Baroque, for example, that I was looking to that kind of music in another point of view than before. This was really a very interesting confrontation for me. It makes the music, even the music of the former centuries, it makes all this kind of music much more interesting and much more understandable for the audience and for our own. I'm sure about.
Thank you so much, Dirk. Philip Verneert is jazz guitarist, cultural activist and music teacher. Also, Philip is a practitioner researcher who is interested in participating as a musician as well as studying social and community music projects. Philip is chief editor of the Flemish magazine Jazz and Mo and president of the B-Jazz International Contests. He's now finalizing his PhD research at the Lucas School of Arts on the Ostend Street Orchestra, a community arts program which was started in 2014 and which is an inspiring project for many. Is this a good introduction to you, Philip?
That is perfect, Lucas. Thank you very much.
Well, Philip, my first question is, why did you want to be involved in social music work and social and community music projects? And how did it start? Where did you start?
Well, my first experience, it already dates from many years ago when I was involved in a first community music project, you could say, called Ethno. It's Ethno Flanders. I was involved in that. It's a music camp with young people from all over the world, very diverse. And I experienced there that this social and musical interaction was really the answer to diversity and to interculturality. There was no issues whatsoever. People really bonded, and it was very motivating for me to continue seeing that, to continue this kind of work.
And now you're lately especially involved as a musician, and now also doing research on this project in Ostend, the Ostend Street Orchestra.
Yes, it's a program, a community music program that started in 2014 already, and it started as an orchestra with homeless people. But very quickly, other musicians came, and it became a rich mixture of social, economic, psychological profiles, you could say, a rich, also diverse cultures. And it was very special because, of course, there were musicians who could play their instrument, and there were also people who never played an instrument. So working with this mix was intriguing and very hard, I must say. It's not easy, but it was very rewarding for ourselves as coaches and for the people.
And what kind of music do you play then? If some of the participants or some of the members of this group are musicians and others are not?
Yes, that's of course it's impossible to play from sheet music. That it's really not possible. So improvisation was the key word, making your own music. So we started from the input of the group. Of course, you could say if people don't play music, what kind of input can they give? But they can. I saw it many times. Very concretely, often people come in, and if there are instruments, they tend to play on these instruments, to touch it, like children do. It's very intriguing, and we started from there. Somebody came in, took up on a drum set, started playing. So the role of the coach was then to get these ideas and make it into a musical context, let's say.
Who is we?
Tozo is the Ostend Street Orchestra was led by 3 coaches. I was not one of the coaches, but I participated in many rehearsals and concerts, and I know the coaches very well. One of them is my wife, by the way. So 3 coaches, all with an improvisational background, I must say, but also with a very great interest in this kind of
also
project.
Bart Maris, who we interviewed in a previous episode of the podcast.
Exactly, Bart is there, also Giovanni Barcella, who's a drummer, and Ilse Duik, who's a vocalist.
Yes. Can you give some examples of how they make things work?
Very quickly, they really worked together because they did these rehearsals at the same time, with the 3 coaches at the same time. It was one of the strong things of this project, I think. And also they disagreed a lot of the time about the musical path to follow. But they discussed this openly during the rehearsals. So it had the effect that also the participants saw that it's not like a pupil-teacher relationship. It's really equality also among them, and it gave this sense of an equal relationship between the participants and the coaches.
How do participants are they involved in making choices during the process of the making of a piece, of a maybe it's not about a piece also, but yes.
No, exactly. It was more about the process. We did concerts also, but I mean the concerts were not so different from the rehearsals, I must say. Well, the participants had a great say in the music. In fact, it was all new music. It emerged from improvisation. And very concrete, sometimes a horn, a trumpet player was playing a few notes, and then Bart quickly took up these notes and tried to make it in something musically. The same happened with the groove, with the drummers, and with the vocalists, who made their own lyrics, often sang them in their local dialect. And all this made or created the feeling that the participants had really the feeling, they said it out loudly also, that it was their music, it was their group. So this kind of agency is very important, I think.
What kind of music should I imagine comes out of this?
Chaos, Lucas, chaos. And chaos is not something we could put away as not musical. It's in a way you have to rethink some musical parameters, like structure, melody, tonality, and so on. It's very important. It's not easy for a studied musician to do that. But it's chaos in a good way. I think there was so much energy. It was like a machine who didn't stop rolling, like a train who went on and bigger and bigger. So there was a groove, and it continued sometimes, I must say, sometimes for more than an hour non-stop. And the singers did things, and at the same time the horns played riffs, and it was very organically, let's say, friendly, chaotic, energetic music. I think we all have, and certainly studied musicians, we all have that sense of how something should sound, a product. It's all around us. And in working in these kind of projects, you really have to put it aside. So in the beginning, there was, of course, trying to strive for a product, a concert, something normal in our society, and that I see it as a mistake, because it doesn't work, and you have to put it aside in your mind and get with the whole group in this feeling of expressivity, creativity, I would say.
Other mistakes?
What do you mean? Are there mistakes?
Other examples of mistakes?
Other mistakes
that you learned from?
It's very important to have a sense of equality. But you can say that, but it's like you are a studied musician and you think, I can play it better. I know how something should sound, and you may not do that. Really, you cannot do that. So put this aside. And also, it's like a trap. Still trying to induce some forms and some melody and structures, and making appointments. It didn't work with Tozo. So if we said, okay, now you can improvise, and then this part and then this part, most of the time the group said.
And also not when you're preparing a concert, because you just said that the concert were like the rehearsals, so you didn't really prepare concerts. You didn't agree on what it should be about or sound like, or no?
Yes, there was. Well, it's a mixture. There was also some theatrical aspects, like clothing and a decor, some paintings and things. So this gave also the structure. And there were no songs, but there were riffs that we tried to induce, that the coaches tried to induce with the orchestra. But still, the energy and the chaos sometimes took over. I have a very nice anecdote. That was one of the biggest concerts, was in Theater aan Zee in the Grote Post in Ostende, who is a really big concert venue. It was full. And it was fantastic, I felt, and also the people liked it. But the concert didn't end. And after an hour, they had to stop, and people started going away. And some of them were just, okay, they were in the mood, and they kept on playing. So, okay, we just accepted that. It was impossible to stop them.
Sarah Théry is a French mezzo-soprano who is at the same time in a classical music career, but also very keen on being actively involved in social music projects, such as the one she is lately working in together with the organization Equinox, an initiative of the Belgian Queen Elizabeth Musical Chapel. I hope this was a good short introduction to you.
It was perfect.
So my first question is, what made you want to be involved in a social music project at all?
Well, I guess it is coming from the fact that I'm not coming from a musician family. My parents are teachers, and I grew up in a countryside in Brittany. But somehow I got the classical music virus somehow when I was a kid. My parents were listening a lot of music at home, music from...
Does it hurt?
It doesn't hurt. it doesn't hurt. It was quite an inspiration for me. I think we were listening to music from all over the world, but also a little bit of classical. But I guess it's because I saw movies and I went to the theater quite early when I was a kid. And suddenly I wanted to be a classical singer. I wanted to be an opera singer. And so when I started to do these outreach projects, these social music projects, this is, I think, what I wanted to do. It's create vocation. It's to inspire people to become a musician, as I was inspired as a kid, not coming from this background, not going so often to the theater because there were none close to my home. So I wanted to go and reach people in their own environment to show them that music was not far away from their lives and could also reach them into their lives.
Can you tell me what were your first experiences in this field?
So I started to... Because I was inspired as a kid and because my parents are teachers, the first people I went to reach was kids at school, in high school in France. I was building up recitals with a friend, a pianist friend, and I went to high school, I went to middle school. Then I also went to hospital, to mental health institution, to prisons, to refugee centers. And it was all the time concert made for these places. I think when you talk about outreach programs, these social music works, there is two things. They are divided for me in two parts. There is the first part, which is making music for, designing... Performing designed recitals or designed shows for a specific audience. And this is how I started, by making music for. And there is also the second part, which is making music with. Yes. And I think that we will get to that a little bit later. Making music for, it's the easiest way of going into an outreach project. It's basically what you know how to do, bringing your excellence on stage, but you are building this excellence towards an audience that is not convinced that you should be there. When an audience comes to a concert, they come to listen to you, or at least the piece that you are performing. So they are on your side. They chose to come there. When you are going to places, to different places, when you go out of the recital hall, you need to convince the people. So you need to communicate with them. So you need to have different skills than the one of the performer. You need to communicate, you need to present the pieces that you are playing, you need to create a narrative around this piece. Why did you choose this piece? What does it say? What does it say to you? Who is the composers and everything? And you need to be super flexible because the reaction to the public is not the one from the audience you are used to. They can clap whenever they want. They can talk during the concert. They can ask you questions. They are really active because they don't have these codes of a classical concert. So you need to be super flexible. The acoustic is not right. When you go to the schools, you go and you sing at 9 a.m, which you never do as a performer. And you need to really embrace what's happening during the concert. It's very important, and this is part of a skill that we are not used to go and how can I say that? We are used to perfection, and here when you go into outreach projects, you should be used to flexibility. You should bring your perfection because you always have to perform at your best, but you need to be extremely aware of everything that is outside yourself.
In which context did you start to work with, to make music with participants outside of music school contexts?
So this is something I got to do all these concerts and all this this music for, and I went to places where I really thought, okay, it's not enough. I want to do more. I want to create music with. And for that, I got trained because I didn't have the skills. Making music with you have to compose with the participants. It means that the participants, they are there to do. They are there to perform. They are there to learn from you, and so they are there to do. And for me, it was not about giving them the music, meaning that they go to a rehearsal, like a choir rehearsal, and they have this piece and they have to learn it. For me, this was not enough, and it's a very nice thing. I mean, amateur music is very important in a lot of communities, and it's really important. But for me, I really wanted them to have the ownership of what they were doing. And I got a training in Aix-en-Provence, in the lyrical festival of Aix-en-Provence. They have this outreach skills program led by the leader of this program is called Mark Withers. And Mark Withers is the head of the outreach department from the LSO, the London Symphonic Orchestra. And because in Anglo-Saxon countries, this is something that they are doing since a lot of years. When he came to work with Aix-en-Provence in the festival at the beginning, he was quite shocked that there were not a lot of artists that knew how to develop those skills. And so he said to Bernard Faucroul, who is the former director of La Monnaie and who was the director of the Aix-en-Provence Festival at that time, they designed together this outreach skills program.
Did that then only go on during the festival period in the summer or also during the year?
No, it's a 3 period during the year, so it's 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. You train 3 times. You can reconduct it. I have been doing it for the past 5 years, I think.
So it's continuing now also that Bernard Faucroul is not director anymore?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Pierre Rodi decided to keep it. Also because Bernard Faucroul built this specific training program for artists, but he also developed, as well as in La Monnaie, a cultural mediation department, an outreach department.
Yes.
People working all year with schools, with hospitals, with refugees, and they need the artists to come, and they need us to train, because we train, and then we go to those institutions to give some workshops. And they also have these local artists that are part of this department and that goes every day, every week to work with those groups of people.
We're really interested to learn more details about the Aix-en-Provence program, how it was really set up in connection to work in projects, or is it just teaching outside of projects? How is it organized?
So this outreach department, Passerelle, is working hand by hand.
So it's called Passerelle?
This is the outreach department. It's not the outreach skills program, which is designed to train. It's not the training program. It's the program that is there.
Yes, the overall program. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. It's the department that helps the Aix-en-Provence Festival to have an anchor in their region. Meaning that they offer to groups to come to general rehearsal, to meet the artists during the big festival and everything. So this is the Passerelle department. Mm-hmm. And they are building a lot of things hand in hand with the mainstream festival, with the opera festival. Yes. But they also create like all year, workshops in the schools, in the hospital, in the refugee centers. Uh-huh. And they have people coming every week, artists coming every week, like a little bit like a teacher, but it's to build workshops, to help. For example, they have a group of highly handicapped girls, and they have someone going there every week to really work on how you can be calm with music, how you can perform music, and how it helps you to focus and everything. So they have that. And when you go to train, this training program, you train for that. You train to create workshops. You don't train to perform for, you train to perform with. You train in composition, you train in body language, you train in voice language, you train to create music with, meaning that if you have a piano I got trained to make people that doesn't know how to play the piano, to enable them to use the piano. How can you make music when you're not a pianist, but you can still make sounds? And how do you make those sounds be a music?
It's quite astonishing that such a program is developed from a classical opera festival like Aix-en-Provence, no? Because does it in any way come near to the classical repertoire, the music that you propose in such programs?
It depends. For example, being a partner artist, a trainee from this program since such a long time, the Aix-en-Provence Festival commissioned me a piece. They asked for me to create a piece specifically for kids. It's a 45-minute show where I perform with a vibraphone, like the instrument. We created a little story and we perform only classical music repertoire. And within this little piece, we have built some workshops to do with the audience so that the audience is participating in this piece. But sometimes, and especially with the highly handicapped people or also with the refugees, the idea is to create music, meaning that we touch to not the repertoire, but we touch to how we compose. We are actually working with modern music. And I must say, every time when I was doing music for, meaning that when I was doing my recitals in the prisons or in the schools, actually contemporary music, it's something they love. It talks to them because they have the feeling that the text, the way it was composed, it's really strange, but at the same time, they can rely somehow to weird noises.
I would like you to think of an experience where you think you made a mistake in this work, but a mistake which was interesting because you learned from it.
Well, this is a tough question because
You don't make mistakes?
No, it's not that, but I don't think they are mistakes. The thing is that when you are working with and that you go without expectations, I think the biggest mistake you could make is being too prepared or too less prepared. You need to find the right way of preparation. If you're too prepared, it means that you're not creating with. You are making them create what you want them to create. So in a way, you are using the participant to arrive where you want to arrive, which is for me the biggest mistake you could make. Because what you want or what I want is really find this symbiosis, this place where we are all learning from each other. So if we are too prepared, if I am too prepared, I am expecting something and it doesn't come, I get frustrated, they get frustrated, and then the atmosphere is not right. If you're too less prepared, at the end of the day, they didn't learn anything and they get a little bit frustrated because they don't really know what happened and where they can go. I created a company, an opera company in the north of France, and we are doing only participatory projects right now.
What's it called?
It's called La Meute, and I created it with my partner in crime, Claire Pasquier. Claire Pasquier is a director, a stage director. And what we are doing is that we work for 2 weeks with a group of participants that are coming from any kind of backgrounds. The last group was from 7 years old to 82 years old. And they are 25 and they need to create a show. We are creating an opera together.
Where do you do that?
We are doing it in the north of France, in Lille.
In connection with the opera, or?
It is not, but actually we received the support for the opera. I wanted to go back to that actually. You said that it was unusual for the Festival Aix-en-Provence to do this kind of outreach work. Actually, there is so many operas that are doing it today. The La Monnaie is doing it. They have a great department, the Opera of Lille. But if you go abroad, the Met is like one of the biggest institution to develop our outreach program. They are crazy. The LSO, the London Symphonic Orchestra, it's crazy. All the Anglo-Saxon institutions, they all have their outreach program. And they are doing so many things, from kids to prisoners to, like, it's quite something. And an artist, for example, like Joyce Di Donato, is building with the Met, with Carnegie Hall, so many wonderful projects. And it's quite something. But so to come back...
Yes, I'm sorry to have interrupted you. So you were saying it was a project you're doing with La Meute.
Yeah.
It's on a text of?
Of Laurent Godet. Laurent Godet is a writer, a French writer, and he wrote a monologue on Dionysos, and it's actually a monologue that is talking about individuality in a group. And so we worked with 3 different composers that are composing a little bit the musical background that is pre-recorded, and then on this background, which is really like just sounds, and on this the participants can create music. They can choose the lyrics they want from the piece. They can also write text. We are working a lot on live creation, meaning we are all on stage and we are creating, and we need to be super flexible because every time they give something, we need to take this something and think, okay, what can we do with it? How can we make it grow? And so at the end of the process, they feel like they are the composers and the performers and the stage director of this piece.
Yes, I'm sorry to interrupt with a question here, because how are things fixed then? I mean, who is making decisions on what to keep and what not to keep? Is that also a collaborative process? And
yes.
How do you organize that? Doesn't seem too easy to do that, but maybe it is for you. But
no, it is not. It is actually the 2 weeks of rehearsals we get out of there and we are washed. It's really difficult. So we have some kind of structure. So this piece is divided in several chants, and for each chant we have a theme, and because of the text gave us the theme, and so for each part we have this musical background, and on this we have like a form or a structure, and within this we can do whatever we want, like a sonate form, and then you create whatever you want, but you need to have one opening, one slow movement, and one really fast movement, and that's it. So it's the same for us. We have some kind of structure, and within that they can create whatever they want. Everything is filmed. Every night we go back, we are thinking. Every day we are thinking, okay, this, and then we make proposition and we say, okay, we saw everything. Do you want to check? Do you want to see it? So they can also watch the video. They can also say, okay, yesterday I felt really comfortable doing this or doing this. Do you think we can keep it? Okay, why did you feel comfortable there? So it's a lot of talking. There is a lot of making, a lot of games. Because
games?
Yeah, musical games, stage games, like to open creativity. You can't arrive on stage and you say to someone, you are going to be a composer when they never composed. You need to trick them. And at a point they are actually composing something and they didn't really understand that they were composing something. So we have a lot of games, we have a lot of exercises.
And who are we? How is the team composed?
So we are 3 for this first project. It's me, my colleague Claire, so Claire Pasquier, the stage director, and we have a performer and who is also the stage designer, Bastien Poncelet. And the participants are also creating the staging and the costumes and everything.
Can we now speak about your work with Equinox?
Yeah.
Is it in certain ways similar to what you developed with La Meute?
Well, at first it was not. So what I am doing with Equinox is the first project I did after my training in Aix-en-Provence. I did a concert in prison, and it's where I decided that I wanted to do more, that I wanted to create with, because I felt it was such a shame to come to the prison just like on one shot. doing this concert and leave. And I felt like I really wanted to get involved in their lives and to really work on classical music. So the first program we did was to go there with a friend, my pianist friend, always the same, Christia Uzzi, and we designed workshops on classical music. We were singing one piece, then we were breaking it apart with the inmates, is trying to see how it was composed, how the text was composed, what the text was talking about. And then we were doing a lot of voice exercises so that they could really master their instrument, this voice instrument that we all have. For me, it's also when you work on the voice, you work on your inner self, you're in your ground. When you know how to really put your voice in your body, it makes you way more calm. It's a way for me to break the violent circle. So we work on that for a long time, and then suddenly...
I'm interested in knowing what the timing is.
We go once a week.
For how long?
Well, for a year we worked, a year and a half, but a prison, sometimes you arrive and then the doors doesn't open. So it's really difficult.
Not always possible to get in.
Exactly.
And also lately with the pandemic, it's also complicated, no?
It's really complicated and it's really frustrating because we have not seen the inmates for over a year now. I'm very angry that the doors are not opening because for the inmates, it's really... it's such a hard time. They have nothing anymore. They are in their cells and they have no opening on the outside world, no way of improving any kind of skills that they could improve for the day they go out, because almost all the inmates, they go out. And these workshops are for them a tool to get ready to go back to society. And if they don't have that, they just go to prison and go out and nothing has changed. And it's actually way more difficult for them.
And you do this on your own, or you also have colleagues doing these projects in prison?
So in prison, we went just two of us, Christian and I, the pianist and I, and we decided that it was a little bit too much, especially because we also have our performing work, like the mainstream music, and it's difficult to commit to every week workshop, because sometimes we have a production and I'm away for a month and a half, and what can I do? So we created a team, and now we want to work to create with the inmate a show that would go to the theater around the Winterreise from Schubert. And for that, there will be Christia, there will be Claire Pasquier, because La Meute is taking over for the creative part of this. Equinox stays at the coordination part that enables us to go to prison, and La Meute, the collective, is getting all the creative parts. And we will go also with another musician that comes from the modern music world and the electronic music, so that we can mix also the musical worlds. We can put together Schubert and the electronic music of today and see what comes out of it.
A very different question, Sarah, is doing this social and community music projects, has this changed somehow how you perform as a musician, as a singer, in your career as a singer? Do you feel differently, or do you also have the impression that you're performing differently?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't want to go out.
Is it possible to explain?
Yeah, of course. I don't want to take out the violins here, but it changed everything. It changed my whole life. I became such a better performer.
In which way?
In the way that I stopped wanting for things to happen. I made things happen, first of all, because when you go into this kind of work, you are involved in the organization of your performance. It means that you have to reach out and say, okay, I'm a classical singer, I could go here, I could go here. So you learn to become active in the way that you have something to offer. And so first of all, this helped me a lot. Then this flexibility that I was talking about before helped me so much to not care about the outside, about the acoustic, about the getting everything perfect, to be in the best shape of ever. I learned that I could actually sing in any kind of circumstances, and this is something that I take in me. It's some kind of calm that I have now in me, that I know that I can go on any stage, anywhere in the world, outside, on a theater, in a church, in a school, in a gymnasium, everywhere, and I can sing and I can touch people. And because if you go with a complete open spirit, there is something that is happening. So for me, it changed a lot.
Sarah, un grand merci, vraiment. SIMM is the initiative of scholars and practitioners from 7 different countries and 4 different continents who felt the growing need to find ways to bring together people interested in developing research on the possible role music can play in social and community music programs. Sound engineer and co-editor of this episode of the SIMM-podcast is musician Mariusz Radwanski. Please visit our website at simplatform.eu.